What's good, everybody? Let's see. What's up, everybody? It's Big Game James. I'm back in the building. I told you I'd drop a video on kind of the second wave of free agency, also dealing with the draft. A little bit of the draft, mock draft I did, which I pretty much like this mock draft. And if Dallas did this kind of draft, I'd be definitely satisfied with it. And then some quick Cowboys news, and maybe some other possible free agency. I think the Cowboys may be done like usual, but you know what? There might be those stragglers that might come around, kind of like what Everson Griffin did in 2020. A lot of people were clamoring for him, thought he'd be a great addition. It waited, and the last minute kind of got formed and signed. So maybe that might happen this year. But let me just jump into some things that I'm already want to talk about. Let's just talk about number one, the free agents that the Cowboys do have that they re-signed. So if you haven't noticed already, I love Todd Archer. I'm going to go ahead and talk about him again. He does great writings for the Cowboys. He's a Cowboys senior writer for ESPN, and basically gives a very thorough breakdown of the Cowboys signings. And we're just going to go through them once again if you haven't already. Be a real quick briefing and some new additions that just came with the Cowboys. So all of this is updated, so that's good. And then we'll go through some other things right quick before we head off of here. But obviously, Michael Gallup, we had talked about him. 5-year deal, $62.5 million to remain in Dallas, $10 million signing bonus. I just read a few things, especially with Pro Football Focus, and I'm going to bring that up about team-friendly deals. This is a team-friendly deal for the Cowboys. Even though it looks big, it's a team-friendly deal for the Cowboys, as well as DeMarcus Lawrence. So we already know about how Stephen Baby Nuts Jones does. He ain't going out there spending all kind of crazy money, and even when you get a deal, it's still going to be team friendly for the Cowboys. He's not going to just make it hard. He's always going to be about the cap with Stephen Jones. Any player that signs a deal with the Cowboys from here on out, it's always going to be about the cap. So players better understand that when you come to Dallas, or if you think about coming to Dallas, y'all already know you're going to have to fight for your money over here. And even if you do, it may not be the greatest deal for you later on, because Cowboys are going to control it, and I'll break that down real quick. But obviously, you see. And I like to bring down what's the risk, because we know Stephen Baby Nuts Jones don't like taking risks. He's conservative person by nature, person who doesn't want to change, who person believes in their beliefs, and that's it. I gave the definition on my Facebook and my YouTube, and a lot of people were acting all weird, talking about politics and all this, and wasn't nobody talking about no damn politics. I was talking about somebody being conservative and how that conservative person acts, and how we have a conservative person with Dallas, and that's the reason why Dallas is kind of going to win games. They'll be competitive, but I don't feel like it's going to get you over the hump when you don't want to take a risk here and there, but you take risk in the draft. That's what I don't make sense, and I'll end with that. But anyway, here it is with Michael Gallup. We had already talked about him. What's the risk? And not too much, really. I mean, there's a risk because he's injury prone, but you signed that deal. But the way you signed that deal, it covered you. So it ain't really no risk, because if Michael Gallup doesn't pan out, it's really more it's essentially a 2-year deal, and you can cut ties with him if it doesn't work. So that's smart. But once again, it's going to be conservative, always covering the Cowboys back, which is cool. Jake McQuaid, we talked about him. If you don't talk about the snapper, that's a good thing. What's the risk? None, as we said before. DeMarcus Lawrence agrees to a 3-year, $30 million deal and guarantees, but most importantly, the reworked contract opens up much-needed cap room this year, which it did. But as the Cowboys spending money on some free agents? Not really, because we'll look at those deals from the 2 outside free agents that they got. So what's the risk? Purely medical, and we know about this. We know about DeMarcus Lawrence's injury history, but still, team-friendly deal in essence for the Cowboys, because it opened up money for them. Marcus Lawrence got guaranteed money, but once again, it didn't flexibly hurt the cap, so that's smart from the Cowboys' perspective, okay? Malik Hooker, I think this was one of the best signings that they had. I like what Malik Hooker did. A lot of people were screaming for him. Shout out to Tyrone Church for calling that again. But, we're all kind of wanting this to happen for about a year or so, and it finally did. Comes back on a 2-year deal, $8 million. You saw what he did. 446 snaps last season, played like 15 games, had basically a career year without playing as many snaps as he played in the Indianapolis Colts. And he proved healthy after that Achilles tear. So financially, risk, what's the risk? Not very much over a 2-year deal. Mostly the risk is medical. And they'll probably still have Donovan Wilson back there. They still have Izzy. Mukamu, so, and they probably may draft, so we'll see. But there's still not a risk in that the way they did it. Jeremy Sprinkle, I like that addition because he's a blocking tight end. You need that. Dalton Schultz really isn't that guy to be the blocking tight end. You lost Blake Jarwin. Sean McKeon's in the fold. I think this is his third year from Michigan. I like what he brings to the table. Cowboys still need to add speed to this position, in my opinion. They did talk to, I believe, Jelani Woods from Virginia, who's a 4'6" guy at 6'7". Didn't really blow up until this season, so he's kind of still developmental and raw. But who knows? You could probably get him in a fifth-round pick if the Cowboys keep all four of those picks. So maybe that's what they're looking at him for. So we'll see about that. What's the risk, as you hear? Stop me if this sounds familiar. None, really. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. agreed to terms on a 2-year deal worth a maximum of $13 million with $6 million guaranteed, according to a source. Obviously you're keeping a strong piece. 5 sacks last season, a career high, 1 fewer than Randy Gregory. Proved pretty good against the run and improved pass rusher. Also helps on special teams. I think he got a block punt this year or return. Only turns 25 in June, and we like what he brought to the table. And actually, I like the pick when he was coming out of college. I was wanting him to take that next step, and he finally did. Contract year, better late than never, but it's still a young player that you had in the fold, so you can't be mad at that. What's the risk? It's a 2-year deal for a player they believe is a center. It's only a risk if they don't add pass rushers to Armstrong, which they already did. DeMarcus Lawrence, Chauncey Golston, whoever else. They already added Dante Fowler. They're probably bringing back, I think, Terrell Basham. So you see they added a pass rusher to kind of cover their back on that. So there isn't a risk because they added other guys to the fold to kind of cover, if Dorrance Armstrong Jr. doesn't really pan out. But if you look at the deal, it's still not crazy. LVE linebacker, I thought they would come back to him. I didn't know it'd be a 1-year deal. I didn't think it'd be a lot. I thought he had a market, but it's a 1-year deal with the max of $3 million a quarter sources, which is nothing. So I don't know if he didn't have a market for himself or he just liked the way he was in Dallas. But hey, he's coming back for another year. Like I said, Van Der Esch got better at the end of the year. Having help up front really helped him. But I thought he played better at the end of the year, and he only signed a 1-year deal. So it's not killing you in the fold, and you can still definitely draft a playmaking linebacker in this draft. So you don't feel like you're really – that helps you as far as what you want to do as far as the draft with linebackers, but you don't feel like the cupboard is bare. What's the risk? Very little, especially financially. You know what I mean? So there that is. James Washington agrees on a 1-year deal with the Cowboys. Cowboys need a number 3 receiver with Cedric Wilson joining the Miami Dolphins. So we like seeing that. Let's see. So when you go down and look at what he had, 114 receptions for 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns in 4 seasons, pretty much a bust if you look at it. For a second-round player, just had 24 receptions for 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, 15 games. But the Cowboys believe he can step in there and produce because there's an opening. What's the risk? If he doesn't show he can help the club, the Cowboys are not heavily tied to him with the 1-year deal. At this point in free agency, there's minimal risk. And they're probably going to draft probably a couple of receivers. They should get some speed up in that building. So minimal risk, and it doesn't hurt your team. And now you possibly have a third receiver that can slide in for what Cedric Wilson did for you. Dante Fowler, 1-year deal. Cowboys need to add pass rush help with the loss of Randy Gregory, keeping Dorrance Armstrong Jr. They agreed to Fowler. We understand he was a top pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Once again, I thought he was going to really go crazy over there. Injuries kind of curtailed that. He went over to the Rams and had 11.5 sacks. You saw some what people had been waiting for. But then he signed over with Atlanta, ended up only getting 2 years, 7 sacks, and they said he kind of fell off. But to the credit of him, Dan Quinn was fired mid-season, around Game 5, not even mid-season. So he really didn't get to specialize with Dante Fowler. So people are expecting from the Cowboys brass to kind of bring out what Dante Fowler may have. They're not going to give him a long-term commitment, but, this could be one of those rebirths of a year, kind of like they had with Robert Quinn when they brought him over and he had 11.5 sacks. So that could be something as well. And here it is once again. Stop me if you heard this. There's no financial risk. That's what they do over here in Cowboy land, especially with the cap. One of the big signings for Cowboys that a lot of Cowboys people were clamoring about was Ron Kearse, and he finally got that deal, 2-year deal, $10 million, but can max out $11 million. $5 million per. That's what I had been talking about a couple months ago. Would probably be a good signing point for him. I didn't know what they were going to do with it, but I'm glad they stepped up and signed Kurtz because he was a leader with the team, which is a great thing. He came in with 92 tackles, 1 sack, 7 tackles for loss, 10 QB pressures, a fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, and 10 pass deflections. That far exceeded expectations after he signed a 1-year minimum salary benefit deal a year ago. This deal comes with greater expectations, obviously, but I think he'll step up to it because, I don't think Jaron Kurtz is a passionate player, and he takes things personal. I don't think he's going to come out here slagging and slopping. I think he's going to take that real personal and try to get the Cowboys defense back to where it was last year. What's the risk? He's healthy and just turned 18, but he can produce. But can he produce at that same level again? The Cowboys believe so by bringing him back, but he has to prove it. Quinn found the best way to use Kurtz was mostly near the line of scrimmage, working in the run game and covering tight ends. He's been a godsend. Dan Quinn, he's kind of been the defensive whisperer, so looks like that's what they're trying to do. Brian Anger, a lot of people were some people were frustrated. You spent a 3-year deal, $9 million on a punter, but you could have, signed some other people, but it is what it is. He was a Pro Bowler. He was great in the punting game. A lot of people kind of overlook special teams and what it does, but, when you have a really good special teams, and you don't talk about it, that's a good thing. Once again, he was a Pro Bowler. He set a team and personal best with a league-high 44.6 next average, which was tied for 4th in NFL history. Pretty good. Can he do it again? He doesn't need to be as good, but he can't fall off the map like he did in 2017 after re-signing with Tampa Bay. Look at that key. His net average went from 42.7 to 39.5. A year later, he had a 38.9 net average. He turns 34 in October, but he's been durable. He's also been a good holder, which will come in handy for a new kicker. And Carlos Watkins. Carlos Watkins agrees to a 1-year deal. Stop me if you keep hearing that, 1-year deals. They keep another player on defense with Dorrance Armstrong Jr., Leighton Vander Esch, Malik Hooker, and Jaron Kurtz. This should help him in Dan Quinn's second year in running the defense. Watkins was something of a surprise to the public last year, if not the scouting department or the coaching staff. He started out 14 to 15 games he played and returned an interception for a touchdown, go along with 32 tackles, 1 sack, 2 pressures, 4 tackles, a loss, a fumble recovery, and a pass deflection. Watkins surprised me. I didn't think he was going to make the squad. He was one of my cuts in the preseason. So he surprised me. I'm sure he surprised everybody and played well with it as far as when you're considering what he did. But what's the risk right here? None. His signing does not prevent the Cowboys from looking for a big defensive tackle in the draft. It gives them some more cover. Quentin Bohanna does not make a big second-year jump, which he needs to do. The price is raised. The type of player every defensive needs. He can play both interior spots, will do a lot of dirty work and won't cause a fuss. That's why they like him, obviously. So let's go with some quick. Let's go with some free agent tracker before we do some Cowboys news. So we just went over that, right? So here's a quick list of obviously the free agent signings and losses from the Cowboys. And I think the biggest thing when people look at Cowboys land and maybe the frustration that might be going on in Cowboys land is this. You lost. As we go through here, you see these names. Noah Brown was signed. But, you lost Amari Cooper, who is still a top receiver. You only got him for a 5th-round pick. We ain't going to talk about that no more, but you really should have got more for him when you see these other receivers that they traded for, Devontae Adams, receivers Tyreek Hill. They got really good capital for him, and you could have got that capital. And it was more of a personal thing with Stephen Jones that he just didn't like Amari Cooper no more. So he didn't really care what they got for him. He just wanted him out of here. So I think that's really what the thing was. But you lose a top receiver. You lose a Randy Gregory, who's a top pass rushing defensive end in the league, no matter what you say. He was a integral member of the team and the defense. So, in my opinion, when you lose Amari Cooper and you lost a Randy Gregory in free agency, and then you release La'el Collins, which we already talked about that. I think it was the best just for both parties because I feel like it just had worn out its time in Dallas. So you lost talent in the building. You lost Connor Williams. You lost Cedric Wilson to free agency as well. And when you look at the people that you brought back for the people you lost, you haven't won in free agency at all. That's why the free agency, in my opinion, has been the same as it is. And, Patrick Walker, my dog, gave him a D. I'm going to kind of stay with that because you lost more than you brought back. And even though you re-signed your players, and that's good because you kept your team intact, you still want to add a few players that can put you over the hump to say, hey, these two guys can really add and put us over the hump. The two guys that you brought in, James Washington and Dante Fowler, are not guys that are taking you over the hump at any particular time at all. So because you're doing that, that's really the thing. So when we look at that aspect of the team, when we see that aspect of the team, it's a failure right there, and it's another D. Now I brought up a player here. As you can see, Vikings are unlikely to retain free agent Anthony Barr. I said, sup. That's a player that the Cowboys should be able to add right there, in my opinion. I don't know how much expensive it is, but the Cowboys, here are his stats. Anthony Barr, I always liked him when he came out of college. I loved him because of his size, 6'4", 255 pounds. If you look at his career, he's had a pretty good career in Minnesota. I don't know what the money would look like. He may be expensive. He's 30 years old. May want to go with a winner. Might want to sign one final deal where he gets paid. May want to do a 1 or 2 year deal, kind of prove himself, and then get back out there in the market. If he's on that type of thing or a 1 or 2 year deal to kind of prove it, because health has kind of been his issue the last couple of years, that's where Cowboys would be perfect to come in there and scoop him. He really can add, play middle linebacker, he played weak side linebacker, he played right. Played the strong side. He's played all linebacker positions, and he's only 30 years old. He can definitely add in 1 or 2 years with Michael Parsons, Jabril Cox. You have Leighton Vander Esch, and then if you don't, scoop up Bobby Wagner, everybody screaming. This is a guy you kind of need to look at, in my opinion. I've been screaming about him since last year, probably around late November and December. I was talking about Cowboys should look at him even before the season was over. So I think the Cowboys should definitely take into that. He'd be a good addition. He still could draft a young linebacker, so that linebacker room can look real good. And then if we go right here to the numbers, Cowboys have $14 million available to spend, so don't tell me you can't sign an Anthony Barr as a linebacker if you don't get anybody else. Add to this defense, because you're probably not going to add to the offense, but add to this defense and see what you can do right there. So with that being said, got that out the way. Anthony Barr, need to check out on him. I want to read a couple things to you. Latest Cowboys news, and then we'll talk a little bit about the draft, and then I'm out of here. But latest Cowboys news, interesting that Mike McCarthy, and we pull that up. Slide up here, sorry if you see that stuff on the other side. But it has been shown in the news that head coach Mike McCarthy to skip league meetings and spend time scouting, and said the NFL annual league meetings being held in person in Palm Beach, Florida this year after a virtual format the past 2 years are always well attended, with GMs, coaches from all 32 clubs sitting down to talk through issues and rules, and it's traditionally been a chance for the media to get some up-and-close personal time with various team leaders. This year, though, there will be at least one conspicuous absence. Coach head Mike McCarthy will not attend league meetings this year. Michael Gelkin of Dallas Morning News cited sources in a tweet Sunday morning. Instead, Mike McCarthy will spend the next several days on the college prospect trail with plans to attend several unnamed school pro days. So I think the biggest thing that what I'm going to pull out of here was this part right here. I want to see, let me go up here. Here it is right here. The lifeline is the draft, the coach said last week during the stretch of several pro days, including Georgia, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Penn State. We know Georgia, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and we know about those. I want to see as many prospects as I can. This is the most involved I've been with the draft. McCarthy explained, it's awesome. So we hear about that with Mike McCarthy, in my opinion. That's just a situation where he's already said when he's talked with Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, have they really put it in his head that it's all about the draft, bro. You got to know about this draft, and this is what it's about, and you got to develop these young players. Plus, your job's on the line. that's where you really make the money is through the draft. With the Cowboys, they don't spend money in free agency. They sign their own, but the lifeline is their draft. So that's why he must go. And, hey, this could be your lame duck season. You could be released after this season if you don't make it happen. So it makes more sense for you not to go to no meetings in Florida or wherever they're doing, because right now you're coaching for your job. And if you want to finish out that 5-year deal, you're going to have to at least make it to an NFC championship for real. And would it make sense to go to Florida and talk about stuff that don't matter to you, or go back on that recruiting trail and hit this draft again because you had 2 pretty good drafts, nail the draft again, and then, you can maybe continue to coach with the Cowboys. Who knows? But that's kind of my perspective with that, with the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy. And a couple other things I want to just hit at before I get off of here is team-friendly deals. This is the way it is with the Cowboys, man. The team-friendly deals. You may not see all of it, but I'm going to read some of it. Team-friendly contracts. This is what Cowboys does. One big check mark for team-friendly contracts is the average per year. A player signing a deal with a average per year less than what was projected for him is likely a team-friendly deal. Dallas is so good with that, Stephen Baby-Nuts Jones. It's also important to consider the contract length and guaranteed money. Longer deals mean the team controls the player's future. When you see the Cowboys, what do they love to do? 6-year deals. What was the reason why it took so long to sign Dak? Because Dak didn't want no 6-year deal. He wanted a shorter deal. So when that contracts came up again and the TV deals came up, he could make some more money. And basically the Cowboys weren't going to control his future. That's the main reason why there was that big fight. I applaud Dak for fighting the Joneses on that and getting what he wanted. Because he has certain things that he has in his clause that nobody else has with the Cowboys, and that's what he had to do, because that's what you have to do with the Joneses. You have to play hardball with them, or they're going to play you, they're not going to pay you, and they're going to basically get rid of you when they want, which they're trying to do it the Patriots way. But one thing I say about that with the Patriots way weren't scared to drop out there and trade draft picks. The Patriots weren't scared out there to release a player and then sign a player out of nowhere, trade a couple draft picks and get a player. They weren't scared to do that. So when they keep on talking about they want to follow this Patriot way, Patriots still wheeled and dealed. Patriots still jumped out there, got rid of a draft pick, signed free agent. They went out there and got aggressive when they needed to. So I don't see the Patriot way here. I just see the conservative way here. And when you see that, once again, it's longer deals means the team controls the player's future. They can choose whether or not to keep the player on the roster, restructure the deal, or trade him at some point, assuming there is no trade clauses. We only know that I think maybe Dak only has that, if anybody. Once again, this gives the team more power. So, in essence, when we talk about, I hear all these people talking about, oh, man, forget Randy Gregory and forget them and that. No, don't forget that. Remember, management is never for you. They're always against you. That should be happening in your job. You feel me? That should be happening in your job. Management ain't never for you, and they ain't never trying to pay you. And we have that process here in Dallas. In Dallas land with Stephen Jones. He ain't never trying to pay you, but he trying to squeeze you out of everything you get. But he's not trying to pay no money. Your guy don't really seems to really care about the players like that. Just wants to make sure they're okay with money wise. And he ain't gonna really never take the next step. So once again, I feel like it's fool's gold for Cowboys to get excited about things when basically you brought the same team back, but you didn't add anything with it of significance. And that's one thing I said before, was that if you're going to get rid of players and have a lot of talent, replace that talent if you're going to lose those players. Dallas has not done that. So my last thing I'm going to hit on right here before I head off of here was I did my mock draft on the Philly Best of Enemies podcast, the Philly podcast. Go check that out and give him a like and subscribe. He's a really good dude. We do great shows together. But this is the draft I just did actually today. Today is Sunday, 3/27/2022. I actually like my draft. You can comment on here and tell me how you feel about it. But I like this draft. I traded back with the Titans. We're at 24, jumped to 26 because I got a pick on. Moved up like 20 spots. Moved down 2 spots, moved up 20 spots, and then I got a 2023 KC pick, 5th round pick. And when we traded out, I did a swap where I basically moved up, didn't lose a pick. So I took Zion Johnson. Kenyon Green was available. Zion Johnson was there. Drake London was there. And Treylon Burks was there. So I can just tell you. My dog Rome from Cowboys Fan Talk was in there. It was funny as hell how he was talking about, man, you let Treylon Burks go. And I know the Cowboys really like Treylon Burks, but I did say that if you got two of those offensive linemen available, whether it's Kenyon Green or Zion Johnson and Treylon Burks, that would be tough. But I'm going to go with that offensive lineman. It was tough between Kenyon Green because I believe they really like him as well. But I think Zion Johnson is a multiple guy, as well as Kenyon Green is. Kenyon Green's a little bit bigger. I just like Zion Johnson's attitude. I wouldn't go wrong with either one of them, but I kind of went out there with Zion Johnson. Came back with Jalen Tolbert, receiver from South Alabama. Once again, I think he is a trending up player. He played good against top competition, 82 catches, 1,400 yards the year prior, had like 1,100 yards. He's a high-end receiver, 6'2", about 200 pounds, ran a 4.40 at the combine. I think he can add a lot of things to the receiver room, and he has good size that the Cowboys like. So I like that pick, and I think he can compete early. Channing Tandahl is a guy I've been loving forever. Ever since I saw Nakobe Dean out, he stood out to me. He's not the best in coverage, and I think that needs to be worked on. But, man, that dude comes downhill. He lays the wood. Athletic as all ever. He tested out all world, and he's still learning the game. So at that pick, great. I feel like great value. Kid that kind of snuck up on me, Nick Bonito, edge from Oklahoma, 6'3", 248 pounds, little undersized at the defensive end position, but he does offer great explosibility. He ran a 4.5 40, had 7 sacks this past year with Oklahoma. I really love what he brings to the table because, like I said, he's a guy that can really come off the edge right now. He's a guy that really can come off the edge right now and really add value to the team. Cowboys need a pass rusher. They lost Randy Gregory. So if you lose a Randy Gregory and you're replacing this dude right here, he has the natural bend. He has the natural athletic ability. He checks all those boxes. And, man, he gets offensive lineman's fit. Go check out Selfish Plug to my breakdown of him from Oklahoma. I think he's a really good pick. Otita Ogbonnia. Defensive tackle, 330 pounds, 6'3", hit 29 on the bench press at the combine. Athletic, played with Osa Ogadazua, so there's the familiarity with there. You have another defensive tackle, one tech. You re-signed Carlos Watkins, as we said. You have Quentin Bohanna back in the fold, so you have guys that you feel like, okay, if Bohanna's not there, you got another big one tech that can really clog that middle. Doesn't clog it like the big boys like Davis and Travis Jones, but plenty enough. Then we come back with D'Angelo Malone, edge kid from Western Kentucky. I love the value of that pick. He's 6'3", 240-pound edge or linebacker. Both Nick Bonito and D'Angelo Malone are guys that could be hybrid guys for you, D-ends, linebackers. He's not big, Malone. He's 240 pounds, but, bruh, he brings the pain. He is a 1,000% Energizer bunny. He goes hard all the time. He is strong. I think he put like 25 on the bench press at his size. He is going to be I think he's going to be a good player. So where you look at those 4 picks, Tandahl, Bonito, Ogbonnia, Malone, which you're already adding with that defensive front, bruh, I think you're feeling real good about that. Danny Gray, I just did a video with him from SMU. For real 4'3" guy, you got a receiver in 4'4" with Tolbert with size. Then you got a 6-foot receiver Danny Gray, who stepped his game up this year, who's a 4'3" guy, a for real 4'3" guy, and he adds in your return game, which you really do need. And he's a guy that can take the top off the defense. Dallas hasn't had a 4'4" guy in over 20 years. They get 2 right here, 1 4'4", 4'3". So guess what? We added speed, what we needed. You added a really good defensive front, which you like. You had a good linebacker trending up. You got your starting guard, left guard. And then when I came with Thayer Munford, he slid into guard at Ohio State because of Petit Frere from Ohio State. But he played offensive tackle, and they're saying that was his best position anyway. So you can slide him back at the tackle, and you got a developmental guy in Josh Joby from Alabama. Didn't really have a good year, didn't really play to his potential, but look where you drafted him. You ain't hurting yourself if something happens because look where you drafted him. But he has all the athletic ability and the measurables to be good. So if he does turn out to be something, you feel great in that. And then our 2023 pick, KC, we get for next year. So we already got an extra 5th round for next year. So I like that draft. And I think if the Cowboys drafted something like that, I think you'd be happy because you got a lot of things that will be coming out there and helping the team right now. So that's kind of my quick thoughts on it. Check this video out. Go like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. Really appreciate everybody. Love all you guys. But that's just kind of my thoughts. Cowboys, if we're giving an overall grade, which I asked you guys, offensive free agency grade, as far as signing their own, A+. As far as going outside in free agency, because that's what we're really talking about, free agency, they got a strong D. I'm going to go with Patrick Walker as well and go with a D. I'm not going to give it a C because Dante Fowler and James Washington are journeymen, okay, and you haven't signed anybody else. If you add like an Anthony Barr or a Bobby Wagner, which could be a shut-up signing, then I think that grade would raise. But as of right now, I'm giving Cowboys a D in free agency, and I'm going to roll with that because they did anything to improve in free agency like always. So we'll see what happens when coming up with this draft because they put all their eggs in this draft. And the one thing I want to say about this before I get off of here is Stephen Jones is extra conservative with the money on his own players, not spending no extra money and staying within the cap. All right, we understand that. The cap is real. And you don't want to be taking no chances and signing people because it may not pan out, and then you lost all that money. So here's the thing. But you go into the draft, and even though those players don't cost as much money, you're taking just as big of a chance because you're putting all that pressure and stress on your personnel and your scouting department to hit every single year. Because if you don't hit every single year, you're going to be toast because that's your lifeline. That's what you put all your eggs in your basket. So you basically have to be hitting every time. And the draft is a crapshoot. None of those guys have come in the NFL yet and have produced. So you're taking a big gamble just by putting all your eggs in the basket on the draft. Because if you don't hit, buddy,